الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس.
The merciful, the compassionate. All praises to Allah, the creator of the universes and their sustainer, the provider of believers and unbelievers. And may his choicest blessings be on the seal of his prophets, the last of his messengers and his holy progeny. And in particular, may his incessant blessings continue to flow on that beloved grandson of the holy prophet, on Hassanul Mujtaba, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. In our discussions of the political life of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, we reached a stage last night when we considered how, upon receiving indirect interferences of Muawiyah into the political life of the Muslims, Imam Hassan alayhi salam decided that he would set out and confront Muawiyah in Iraq. And we saw how Hujr bin Adi was assigned by Imam Hassan alayhi salam to gather the army, and how the army moved on under Ubaidullah bin Abbas. Indeed, Sa'ad bin Qais being appointed his junior. When the army had gathered, they discovered that Muawiyah was moving into Iraq. The moment Muawiyah came to know that Imam Hassan alayhi salam's army has already moved out of Kufa, he established his intelligence, and immediately, on knowing that they have come to the bridge to cross over and confront Muawiyah, Muawiyah halted his passage. He did not progress into Iraq any further. He decided to stop there and start his machinations in other forms. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, on the other hand, having already sent out his army, decided he would himself join the army and lead it in the fight against Muawiyah. And he, having taken another contingent, left Kufa and set out and met his army. When he met his army, he wanted to find out exactly what the position was within the army. Because the army then consisted of 5 categories of people. Firstly, of course, there were his Shias and the Shias of his father. That was the loyal core that formed the pivot, the fulcrum of his army. The next category of people who joined in good numbers into the army were the Kharajites. Do you remember in our discussions last year, these were the people who revolted against Imam Ali alayhi salam in Siffin and said that because Muawiyah had raised Quran in Siffin, they should accept the arbitration of Quran. And when Imam Ali alayhi salam did accept the arbitration, they turned against him and said, how come you are able to accept what Muawiyah says, and hence you have become a polytheist and must make tawbah to Allah. They themselves made tawbah to Allah for having asked Imam Ali alayhi salam to get into arbitration. Imam Ali alayhi salam's answer, you will recall, was that he did not enter into arbitration with Muawiyah. The arbitration was to be the arbitration of Quran, and if the result of the arbitration would not be in keeping with Quran, he would not comply with it, he would not follow it, and that is exactly the ground on which Imam Ali alayhi salam rejected the award of the arbitrators. That then was that category of people. They were the category of people that Imam Ali alayhi salam had to fight in Nahrawan. And those were the people who ultimately assassinated Hazrat Amir alayhi salam. Hence, Imam Hassan alayhi salam wanted to view the situation with some caution. That was the second category of people. The third category of people he discovered were people who were out to make money out of it all. There were people who came out only to make a booty out of the army. And that sort of people lived in that time. They live in this time too. We have mercenaries in our times whom you can engage to go out and fight. And recently there have been cases of how mercenaries have been engaged to go and fight in various parts of the world. So these were just mercenaries. A fourth category of people were doubters. They didn't know what to do, and hence decided they would join the army. If the going was good, they would partake in the results. If the going was not good, they would abandon and come back. A group of people, therefore, that was very liquid and totally unreliable. The fifth group of people who joined were people who joined because the leaders of their tribes told them to join. They had no special affinity, but they would move along with what their tribe expected them to do. And hence, they moved on. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, having taken cognizance of these different categories of people, decided he would take count himself and would marshal the army in a manner that would present a coherent battle against Muawiyah. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was, of course, a very experienced fighter himself. He had fought, although was very young in the times of the Holy Prophet, but in the times of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he had fought in all the major battles. He was there in Jamal, he was there in Nahrawan, and indeed he was there in Siffin. So he had considerable wealth of experience on how to marshal the army and how to monitor his contingents. The first thing he decided to do on meeting the army, therefore, and having taken count of the situation, was to make an address. So he addressed his army. And in that address, he first of all set out his own credentials, which we have already discussed, what the Holy Prophet said about him, what subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah himself has said about him. And having set out his credentials, he then set out his experience. And having set that out, said, you therefore are people who must follow my judgment, because I am experienced in all these matters. I am aware of Muawiyah very well, and hence I call upon you to follow my judgment, to accept my command as final, and to follow my orders. He assumed the total command of the army. The Kharajites immediately went against that. They immediately misconstrued the whole speech quite deliberately. The speech was geared to unifying these 5 different categories of people, giving hope and courage to the Kharajites that they must unite. Indeed, he told them that in unity you will find that there is greater to benefit for your cause, particularly for the cause of Islam, than in the divisions that you are out to make within the Islamic Commonwealth. And so he was bringing the entire army to act in unison, bringing in the tribes also in the course of his speech. Soon after the speech, however, a group went off, the Kharajites, saying he has become an infidel. One fails to understand how that allegation can be made, that he has become a polytheist. He wants to make settlement with Muawiyah, which was not the purpose of Imam Hassan alayhi salam at all. He set out indeed to fight. And after the speech, when Imam Hassan alayhi salam, as he would usually do, entered the tent, laid his prayer mat, and was in the course of prayer, because this is what Imam Hassan alayhi salam is extremely renowned for. And hence all these allegations of he being a weak man, a man of the world, are so totally false. He is pious, and I hope this evening I will consume a few minutes in discussing the piety of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, which is world renowned for that matter, and is set out in various, almost unanimous historical sources, be they Shiite, Sunnite, even Jews or Christians. That is the level of Imam Hassan alayhi salam's piety. Immediately after the speech, as one would expect, he laid his prayer mat and was in the course of prayer, and this group of Kharajites barges into his tent and attacks him whilst he's in the course of prayer. Indeed, what happened in Karbala on Sham-e-Ghariban to the fourth Imam alayhi salam first happened to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. They not only manhandled him whilst he was in the course of worship of Allah, they even removed the prayer mat from under his feet, which meant that he fell off the prayer mat and began to assault him, of course, immediately. And they were in a large group. Imam Hassan alayhi salam not only immediately defended himself, called out for the people of Rabi' and Hamadan. These were tribes that were the Shias of Imam Hassan and Imam Ali alayhim as-salam, and they barged in and removed all the Kharajites from there. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, undeterred by all this, and with the courage and boldness that he always showed, moved on to fight Muawiyah. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, of course, had the confidence in his own battlehood, and he had Imam Hussein alayhi salam along with him. And he was sure that insofar as the battle is concerned, battling out Muawiyah was not a problem. It is the machinations within his own army. And this is a very sad story of the Islamic Ummah. The state of affairs we see in the Islamic Ummah today, one can see has been flowing down since the day of the Holy Prophet. We lament today that if the Muslim Ummah were united today, we say to ourselves that if the various major countries, major Islamic countries, oil-producing countries, therefore countries both of worldly wealth and spiritual wealth, were to gather their resources and to unify their actions, to act in unison against the remainder of the world today, what a powerful globe the Islamic globe would be. Yet we are not able to attain that level of unity. And primarily that is because we have allowed our enemies to disunite us. That has been our greatest weakness. We have allowed our own enemies to disunite us. Some of us have made our enemies our defenders. And hence, the defense of the Muslim, of that part of that portion of Muslim Ummah rests in the very hands of the enemies of Islam. So you can see where our weakness and where the weak line in our edifice of Islam lies today. Precisely that is what you can discern at that point in time. Muawiyah was undoubtedly out to destroy Islam. Muawiyah never came to Islam out of faith. This is so extremely well known. Mas'udi, for example, and I do not want to detain you on this, but without taking much of your time, Mas'udi says that Muawiyah's father, Abu Sufyan, once entered the mosque He thought he was alone in the mosque and turns round to he was blind by then, turns round to his assistant and says, is there anybody in the mosque? And the assistant says, no, there isn't anybody in the mosque. And he believed that there was nobody in the mosque. But Imam Ali alayhi salam was saying his prayers in a corner. Soon it was time for adhan. And when adhan was recited, and the muaddin said, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Abu Sufyan turns round to his companion, to his assistant, and says, look at the way Muhammad has done it. He is gone, but he has left his name in such a way that it is enshrined in the adhan, and it is taken every time adhan is recited. We would turn round to Abu Sufyan and say, oh Abu Sufyan, that adhan was never coined by the Holy Prophet, it was coined on the orders of Allah. But leave alone the adhan, the name of the Holy Prophet is enshrined by Allah in salah itself. If there is no salawat on the Holy Prophet in salah, that salah is not accepted by Allah. And this in fiqh is a unanimous view of all Muslims. But that Abu Sufyan would say that kind of thing, even after the Holy Prophet showed exactly where the faith of Abu Sufyan was. And indeed, Abu Sufyan did not become a Muslim until he discovered that Makkah was to be conquered, as we saw a couple of years ago. And that is exactly the position with Muawiyah. And we will see again tonight in one of his speeches, he was never committed to Islam. He was not a fervent Muslim at any stage at all. That kind of person was allowed by the Muslims to interfere in the running of the Islamic Commonwealth and to bring about results which he wanted. That is, results which Muawiyah wanted in respect of the Muslim Ummah. One sees that in the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam in clear terms. Indeed, one view that is now being taken by some of the historians of today is that even the Kharajites were a product of Muawiyah. But that is a tentative view by some historians. Kharajites themselves set forth as saying that they were anti all caliphs of any nature and were as much out to assassinate Muawiyah as to assassinate any other person. And so Muawiyah was able to prosper in that way, just as the enemies of Islam today are able to use strong Muslim countries to bring about results they want, to turn the course of Muslims into paths which they want the Muslims to be treading. Exactly that is the kind of strategy Muawiyah was out to use, and was allowed by the Muslims themselves to use. Hence, the importance of vigilance of Shias in respect of their faith. That is the primary matter. And that is exactly what Imam Hassan alayhi salam was to achieve in the way in which he conducted his affairs in this particular episode. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, however, undaunted by all this, set out on the path now to meet Muawiyah. As I said before, Muawiyah was deterred by all that happened. The moment he heard that Imam Hassan alayhi salam was already out, he was deterred even to make further progress. He halted his army and was not sufficiently confident even to move on further into Iraq. Imam Hassan alayhi salam's orders were, we must confront Muawiyah and remove him from Iraq. And indeed, we should then enter Syria. Well, however, as he was moving on and came to a narrow pathway which had to be crossed, there were there hidden some Kharajites. Indeed, the name given is Jarrah. And he suddenly comes out from the ambush and with an axe in hand attacks Imam Hassan alayhi salam. But the axe could not reach the neck of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and it hit Imam Hassan alayhi salam on the thigh, penetrating right to the bone of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. That was just out calculated to make it impossible for Imam Hassan alayhi salam to march on to Muawiyah. It is easy to see what planning must have been carried out. And immediately that happens, the Shias of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, of course, surround him. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, in a move to defend himself, grabs Jarrah. They both fall on the ground. The Shias come round, defend Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Jarrah is killed on the spot, but there is also found a companion of Jarrah who is also killed on the spot. Imam Hassan alayhi salam now is not in a position to move on with the army. He is put on a stretcher, and on a stretcher he is moved out to Madain, where Salman Farsi is buried, and a place we visit in Iraq when we are there for our pilgrimage. He is taken to Madain, where the governor was Sa'ad Thaqafi, who was the governor appointed by Imam Ali alayhi salam during his days in Madain, and Imam Hassan alayhi salam had confirmed him in his position. Whilst Imam Hassan alayhi salam was receiving treatment, his strategy being to get well again and march out himself again. He left the army, of course, in the hands of Ubaidullah bin Abbas, whom he had appointed the commander, with Sa'ad bin Qais as the second in command. And soon he receives a report, whilst he's in Madain, from Sa'ad bin Qais, that Muawiyah has written various letters to various heads of these tribes. The Kharajites are already talking about abandoning Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and if need be, joining Muawiyah. Muawiyah's letters to the heads of tribes are that he will give them large sums of money if their tribes abandon Imam Hassan alayhi salam, whether they joined Muawiyah or not. So you can see the strategy that was being played. And if they do join Muawiyah, then Muawiyah agrees to give them a larger sum of money. The mercenaries also received similar letters. Sa'ad bin Qais was able to get copies of quite a few of such letters, dispatch them to Imam Hassan alayhi salam to keep him informed. One of the letters that Sa'ad bin Qais was able to lay his hands on was a letter written by Muawiyah personally. Not all letters were written to him by him personally, were written by his people. This one written by Muawiyah personally to Ubaidullah bin Abbas. And it said that if Ubaidullah bin Abbas abandoned Imam Hassan alayhi salam and joined Muawiyah, the moment he crossed the floor, and now the distance was not big, because Imam Hassan alayhi salam had already covered large chunk of distance to meet the army of Muawiyah. If he crossed the floor, he would immediately get 500,000 dirhams. The total promise was 1,000,000 dirhams. The moment he crossed the floor, he would receive 500,000 dirhams, and the moment he takes charge of the army of Muawiyah, gives all the intelligence of the army of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and moves on to fight, and Muawiyah succeeds, another 500,000 dirhams would be available to him. He was also promised a marriage. Sa'ad bin Qais did not know how Ubaidullah would react to that letter, because he was closely related to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. However, that night passes. The dawn of next morning, Qais finds that Ubaidullah ibn Abbas is not in the army at all. He is not there to lead Salatul Fajr. Of course, Sa'ad bin Qais immediately takes over. He moves on, becomes the Imam, and leads the Fajr prayers. Immediately sends a word to Imam Hassan alayhi salam that the situation is that even the commander of the army has already left Imam Hassan alayhi salam and is already with the enemy. It is amazing in Islamic history how, despite the faith inculcated by the Holy Prophet himself, and further fortified and buttressed by Imam Ali alayhi salam, little promises of money could make people waver in their faith. This, I think, is one of the most important lessons that Shias of today need to bear in mind, because money is floating around even today to take Shias away from their faith. And it is floating around throughout the world, one is amazed to hear. And one finds evidence of that happening throughout the world. There is a complete network to interfere with Shiite in their faith. Hence the importance of these meetings, the importance of us realizing that this danger is real and that we need to guard ourselves against the reality which the Holy Prophet has taught, that little money of this world cannot be as important as maintaining true faith as taught by the Holy Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Imam Hassan alayhi salam now has to take count again. And when he takes count again, he finds that of those 5 categories of people, the only people he can rely on are the core of his Shiites. And this is a very important part of his calculation and of his assessment of the military situation. The Kharajites had already shown their true colors and could not be relied upon at all. Indeed, if anything, they would have fought against Imam Hassan alayhi salam. The tribal leaders had already moved out. They had accepted these bribes and had told their people to move out with Muawiyah, and had received funds already. There was evidence that they too, like Ubaidullah, had already received part of the funds. The mercenaries had changed hands altogether, and the doubters were wavering. Now Imam Hassan alayhi salam, calculating the position, finds that he's only with his core Shias, which was, of course, a much smaller number than the number of people he had set out with. Imam Hassan alayhi salam still was out to fight and saying that even with the core Shias that he has, he will fight out Muawiyah, because what other choice did he have? In the meantime, Muawiyah writes a letter to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He sends copies of all the letters of the leaders of the tribes, saying to Muawiyah that they have changed hands to him. He informs him of how Ubaidullah bin Abbas is already within his camp. He informs him of the position with regard to Kharajites, although he says quite clearly that he does not trust the Kharajites either. But for the time being, he would have taken fullest advantage of the presence of Kharajites. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and he offers Imam Hassan alayhi salam a settlement. He says, why don't we settle this dispute between us? And I am prepared to settle this matter on any terms that you dictate. I pause here. I pause here to ask you to reconsider the situation. Even in the state in which Imam Hassan alayhi salam was, Imam Hassan alayhi salam was ready to go and fight Muawiyah. He would have fought Muawiyah on his own if need be. And Muawiyah knew this too well. I say Muawiyah knew this too well because if Muawiyah did not fear that, why should he want a settlement? I therefore have always insisted that this phrase, Sulh Hassan, is fallacious, is totally faulty. There was no Sulh Hassan. If there was a Sulh, it was a Sulh Muawiyah. And all historians unanimously agree that the move that there should be a settlement came from Muawiyah. It did not come from Imam Hassan alayhi salam at all. And what an offer for settlement. He says to Imam Hassan alayhi salam, you dictate the terms, and whatever terms you dictate, I will be prepared to follow. The question I ask is, and you will judge it for yourselves, if Muawiyah now was with not only his army, but a large chunk of Imam Hassan's alayhi salam's army moving on to him, why did he need to make an offer for settlement? Why did he need to ask Imam Hassan alayhi salam for a settlement at all? Should he not have moved on? And I submit to you that the only logical answer to which you can come is that the strength, the ferocity, the battlehood of Imam Hassan alayhi salam single-handed was such that Muawiyah was scared to fight him even under such circumstances. There is no other conclusion one can come to. And hence, this bogus, this absolutely idle allegation against Imam Hassan alayhi salam of weakness is so totally malicious. It has no room when it is examined in the analysis of the factual military situation as it then existed. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, on the other hand, had to recount the position as it existed in Siffin with his father, and to see exactly what happened, how the Kufians turned against his father, how the Kharijites turned against his father, and how the situation became impossible. Indeed, yesterday we examined how when a questioner from Muawiyah comes to Imam Ali alayhi salam says, this is a person who has killed my kith and kin and has wasted so much of my time. That is precisely what Imam Hassan alayhi salam was afraid of. But another thing that moved very heavily with Imam Hassan alayhi salam was that if he is left only with the core of Shias, and he went down out to battle, at one time he thought he had no choice, but now he is being given choice by Muawiyah. And the choice was a sensitive one. How can the grandson of the Holy Prophet refuse an offer for settlement? Do you see how the sensitive situation was presented to him? If he said, I do not want to settle, it would be contrary to the teachings of the Holy Prophet. Because the Holy Prophet's teaching always was that sulh, as-sulh, ahsanul ahkam, those are the holy words, that settlement is the best of judgments in matters of human affairs. So he is faced with that situation. At the same time, when he examines the realistic situation, if the Kharijites were to turn against him as they turned against his father, indeed they did. The Kharijites, when Ammar Yasir in Siffin came back and said to the Kharijites, what are you talking about? I'm winning the war. There are just very few Syrians left. I'll finish them on my own. You don't join me in the fight. Just pause. Just remain patient. I'll finish them in no time. They turn round to Imam Ali alayhi salam and says, Ya Ali, if you do not stop Ammar, one wonders on whose side these people were fighting. If you do not stop Ammar, we will start an insurrection. We will start a civil war within your army against you now. That was the state in which Hazrat Abir alayhi salam was placed. And Imam Hassan alayhi salam could well visualize that. That would have, and it's very important that the Shiite youth should assess this situation in an objective, unbiased, unemotional way, in a with purely military strategy in mind. Imam Hassan alayhi salam then realized that with the core of Shias at his disposal, he would have to face two enemies. Firstly, the enemy from within, because then Muawiyah would have used the Kharijites to fight the Shias from within. The mercenaries would have been fighting the Shias from within, and there would be the army of Muawiyah from the other side. They too would have attacked the Shias. There would only have been that core element of the Shias now fighting the people from inside and people from outside. And isn't it well known that the enemy within is so much more perilous than the enemy from without? That is exactly the situation in which Imam Hassan alayhi salam was then placed, and he decided that in those circumstances there was a fear that if he did continue with the fight, those Shias who were left with him might also perish. And can you imagine what would have happened if those Shias would have perished? I dare say to this gathering tonight that if that had happened, if Imam Hassan alayhi salam had taken that course and that had happened, you would not have remained Shias. I invite you to consider that proposition that I have put to you. And I'm saying nothing from my own. I'm only saying what Imam Hassan alayhi salam had said himself when questioned by one Shia. But I want to take you for a few minutes, and I mean this, only for a couple of minutes, away from this subject to deal with another criticism. The criticism that Imam Hussein alayhi salam did not make settlement, but Imam Hassan alayhi salam made settlement. He was a person who would just make peace and would not fight. I hope I have illustrated how he was out to fight, and he was out with an army, and despite the fact that his army was deranged, he was still on course. The allegation that Imam Hussein alayhi salam did not want to make peace and wanted to fight is equally fallacious. Ma'adallah, it is unfair, it is untrue. It cannot be said of any descendant of the Holy Prophet that he would refuse a settlement. Because as I said, the teaching of the Holy Prophet was to make settlement. If one takes just a couple of minutes, and I will not detain you, into the history, into the working, more than the history of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, one finds that as he moves on to Kufa, meets Hur on the way, he makes every effort to obtain a settlement through Hur. Indeed, the moment Hur, and Hur was helpless, the moment Hur reaches Karbala, that was on the 2nd of Muharram, he writes to Umar ibn Sa'ad, la'anatullah alayh, and the moment Umar ibn Sa'ad arrives, the first thing that Hur turns around to Umar ibn Sa'ad to say is, why can't there be a settlement with Imam Hussein alayhi salam? And indeed, negotiations for settlement start on that very day, the 4th of Muharram. Indeed, Urwa is sent out by Umar ibn Sa'ad to meet Imam Hussein. Urwa says, I will not go. I was one of the people who wrote a letter to Imam Hussein to come to Kufa. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam is coming to Kufa, I'm now in your army to fight Al-Hussein alayhi salam. I will not, I don't have the face to show him. 2 or 3 other messengers are sent, not allowed to meet Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Ultimately Qurra goes, and Qurra finds his way through Habib ibn Madahir. Imam Hussein alayhi salam asks Habib. Habib says, and I'm only saying this for our knowledge, for our experience of how the world runs. Qurra, Habib ibn Madahir says, oh my master, we know Qurra. He belongs to the tribe. His mother belongs to my tribe. And this is the assessment of no less a person than Habib. He says, I know Qurra, and Qurra is a person who I always believed was a person of sound judgment, and I get this from Irshad. He's a person of sound judgment. I am amazed that he is not with us and is in the opposite camp. So those of us who think we are people of sound judgment, we are balanced, need to re-examine ourselves, need to re-fortify ourselves. One method that the A'imma alayhimus salam, and in particular the 6th Imam alayhi salam, the 8th Imam alayhi salam, have taught in fortifying ourselves are these majalises. Do not, please my dear youths, underestimate these majalises. These majalises are what help us retain our faith. And those who depart from these majalises, you will judge for yourselves. You know them better than I do. Those who depart from these majalises are easily swayed away from the true path of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. These majalises establish a nexus between us and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. These tears that flow from our eyes seal that nexus between us and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and that is what really enables us to remain clinched to the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Habib says, I am surprised that Qurra is on the other side. Negotiations start immediately. And indeed, a stage is reached when in the course of negotiations it became necessary for Imam Hussein alayhi salam to meet Umar ibn Sa'ad directly, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and this is very clear in history, would move out of his tent. He would go to the tent of Umar ibn Sa'ad, and he did this on a daily basis from the 4th of Muharram to the 9th of Muharram. Every evening there would be sessions, every evening there would be discussions. Indeed, look at the 2 situations. Muawiyah says to Imam Hassan, you dictate the terms and I will accept them. Of course, Imam Hassan alayhi salam did not trust that word. Of course, there was treachery in it. But you can see how the settlement is obtained. It is obtained on the basis that Imam Hassan alayhi salam dictates terms, and Muawiyah accepts all the terms that Imam Hassan alayhi salam has dictated. Tell me, who has won the war? I'm not even talking of the battle. If one side says, I am prepared to enter into a settlement and I will settle on any terms you say, who has won and who has lost? Where is the allegation of Imam Hassan alayhi salam making settlement? On the contrary, on the other hand, rather than contrary, on the other hand, when we come to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the offers come from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The offer is, if Yazid is unsure of my position, allow me to go back to where I came from. Allow me to go back to Medina. And I promise, and this is the word of one about whom Allah says, وَيُطَهِّرَهُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. He says, I will stay on the graveside of my grandfather without interfering with Yazid in any way at all. And if Yazid is scared of that, when that did not work out with Umar, Imam Hussein alayhi salam turned his clothes and said, allow me to go away from here safely, and I will go to one of the outposts of the country where I will not be able to have contact with people to interfere with Yazid. Indeed, it is in this analysis that some historians have said that Imam Hussein alayhi salam even offered to go to Hind and to remain in India. And a third course of action that Imam Hussein alayhi salam then took was that if all this becomes unacceptable for any reason or another, take me alive to Yazid. I will come with you to Yazid and I will negotiate with Yazid directly. But can you see the efforts Imam Hussein alayhi salam has made towards settlement? And those efforts continued to the last minute. They failed only because Shimrad al-Jawshan la'natullah alayh turns to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad in Kufa and says, under no circumstances should you accept the settlement. Comes to Karbala and says to Umar ibn Sa'd, either you fight Hussein alayhi salam or you give up the command and I will take over from you. You can see the efforts Imam Hussein alayhi salam has made towards settlement in Karbala, and it is only when all those efforts failed that he made the war. Imam Hussein alayhi salam valued every drop of his blood. And he valued every drop of his blood because that blood was Fatimite blood. He was a trustee of every drop of that blood because it was Fatimite blood. It was not blood that he could afford to allow flowing in vain, and he allowed it to flow only because that is the only way Islam could have been saved. That allegation that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was out to fight is totally bogus as is the allegation that Imam Hassan alayhi salam was not prepared to fight. They were both prepared to fight. When fighting was in the interest of Islam, they would both settle. When settlement was in the interest of Islam, the Holy Prophet says that they are both imamain, whether they are sitting or standing. Qa'iman aw qa'da, whether they are sitting or standing, they are imams. And that is the strategy by which Imam Hassan alayhi salam moved. And ultimately, when he saw that fighting would mean that the few Shias that were left, and you can see how few in numbers we are even today, the few Shias who are left would all also perish, he decided he would settle with Muawiyah. But he settled on extremely strict terms, the first of which was, we turn round and say that he was Khalifatullah, Hujjatullah fi ardi. The first thing he says is that Hujjah of Allah. He says, I will settle only on the basis that Muawiyah should conduct the Khilafah on the basis of Quran and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, full stop. No other way in which Khilafah could be conducted, no other way in which Muslims should be governed. Now that was the greatest defeat of Muawiyah. Muawiyah did not want that to happen. The whole purpose of Muawiyah was to see Islam totally annihilated. The whole purpose of Yazid was to see Islam annihilated. And both of them lost. Muawiyah lost at the hands of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Yazid lost at the hands of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Islam has remained not only alive but awake till today. I tend to ask my Sunni friends when I meet them, I turn round to them on these occasions, particularly on the day of Ashura, when I have a chance of meeting them per accident or otherwise, or when we are discussing Ashura for any reason, I turn round and ask them point blank, and you try doing so too. Judge my argument before you do so. I turn round to them and say, can you truly tell me that you would have remained a Sunni today, saying Allahu Akbar and saying your Salah, if Hussein did not die on the day of Ashura the way he did? Yazid would not have allowed one human being to remain a Muslim. He would have eradicated, he would have wiped out Islam totally from the face of earth. That was the scheme. That was the arrangement. And there is no denying from it. That was entirely the purpose of Muawiyah. And they both lost because that condition of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. If Imam Hassan alayhi salam had fought, and the Shiites would have been wiped out. Indeed, the clock is not allowing me to proceed on the basis that I had planned. So let me just put this in even out of context. But in line with what I'm saying, one Shia asks Imam Hassan alayhi salam after the settlement, that you agree to settle with Muawiyah in this way? Have you not disgraced Islam? He turns around and says, "O Malik, you are asking," and this is reported in Sunnite sources. Ibn Asakir also reports this. Mahwini reports this, and all these reports are extant. He says, what did you want me to do? I was only left with the core of Muslims, and of Shias, and I can tell you that if I had continued fighting in that way, and if my Shias continued to be assassinated from within my army and from without, would there have been any Shiite left on the face of earth? And if no Shiite was left on the face of earth, did I have any hope to see Islam left on the face of earth? Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he left Medina, made a speech in which he clearly said that. He said, when Yazid is the ruler of the Muslims, is there any hope for survival of Islam? The whole religion, Sunnite, Shiite, immaterial, survival of the message of Allah as sent to the Holy Prophet. Hence is Imam Hussein alayhi salam so important. Hence is Imam Hassan alayhi salam so important in the cause of Islam. Hence weeping on them receives so much virtue from Allah. Hence does Allah say, he who loves them, the Holy Prophet loves, and Allah also loves them who love Hassanain alayhim as-salam. These hadiths that I set out are on that basis. Imam Hassan alayhi salam makes that the first condition, that Islam should survive and people should be able to follow Islam according to Quran and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet and nothing else. Secondly, and this is a protection to Shiaism, the curses that are being put against Imam Ali alayhi salam should all be stopped immediately. And anything said in the personal qunut, they used to have personal qunuts in Salah, and vilifying Imam Ali alayhi salam ma'adallah should totally stop. And Muawiyah accepted that condition. The third condition was that the safety and security of Shiites should be totally protected. Muawiyah should guarantee that there would be personal security of the Shias and of their properties. Fourthly, all the rights due to Shias, for example, the social security rights, the social payments that they would receive from Baytul Mal, should all be protected and preserved, and it should be ensured that the Shias should receive them. So you can see protection for Islam, protection for Shias, and lastly, the conditions he made was in respect of himself and Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that they should not be interfered with physically or in respect of their property in any manner whatsoever, and be allowed to continue to live in peace at the graveside of the Holy Prophet. Ultimately, Imam Hussein alayhi salam also had to leave the graveside under different circumstances. And finally, that on the death of Muawiyah, then the Khilafah should return to Imam Hassan or Imam Hussein alayhi salam, whoever was alive at that point in time. And Muawiyah signed all those terms unconditionally. He signed them unconditionally. Another matter, that the moment he enters Nukhayla, when I kept boldly saying that he wanted to wipe out Islam, he never was a committed Muslim. And what I'm now saying is reported in all historical sources. Time does not permit me this evening to set them all out. He enters Nukhayla, and as he enters Nukhayla, he makes the first speech to the Muslims in Iraq, and turns round and says, Ayyuhan nas, I have not come here as a Khalif to tell you to say prayers. He wasn't concerned whether Muslims say their prayers or not. I have not come here to tell you that you should keep fasts. I have not come here to tell you that you should go to pilgrimage. That is not my concern. All I wanted is power. And I have obtained power. And having got power is all I needed. I, of course, accepted all the terms that Hassan alayhi salam asked me to accept. I have accepted all those terms. Whether I now fulfill those terms or not is entirely a matter of my decision, and I'm not minded to follow them anyway. Have you seen a person? Have you seen a person more disgraceful, more shameful than Muawiyah? If a person has made a promise, particularly if he has done so in writing, and does not want to fulfill it, he will not publicly stand up and say, I do not want to fulfill what I have promised. He will give some honor to his word. Indeed, in business and amongst gentlemen, we say, my word is my bond. Isn't that how we live? But what do you think of that person who, having signed that agreement in writing, then turns around and says, I am not minded to follow these terms at all? That shows you the man that you are dealing with. And indeed, when he enters Kufa, he is not concerned with leading prayers. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was leading prayers. And he turns round when the question of bay'ah arises, and he takes allegiance. He turns round and says, yes, you had Amir al-Mu'mineen here, you had Imam Hassan alayhi salam. I have given them what they wanted. In other words, those terms of settlement. Imam Hassan alayhi salam stands up and says, oh Muawiyah, you cannot talk in terms of yourself as in terms with me, because you are the son of Abu Sufyan, who did not become a Muslim except when the sword of Muhammad was on his neck at the conquest of Makkah. You did not become a Muslim until that stage. I am the son of him, my father is him, who was the first to be a Muslim. Not only the first to be a Muslim, but the first to fight alongside the Holy Prophet, and to fight each one of you when you came to fight the Holy Prophet in Badr and in Uhud and in Khaybar and in Khandaq and in all those wars. Your grandfather was Abu Sufyan. My grandfather was the Holy Prophet, about whom Allah has said all that He has said in His book. Your mother is Hind, my mother is Fatima. You can see the courage of Imam Hassan alayhi salam setting out this progeny in the very face of Muawiyah, and Muawiyah could not confront it. Muawiyah could not confront it. I promised. I, of course, have been far from completing the context of the settlement made by Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Nor do I claim that I have exhausted the subject on Imam Hassan alayhi salam. I still have hope, because hope springs eternal in the human breast. I have hope that on Monday night I will have opportunity, somehow or the other, to complete this subject on the settlement of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and to deal with other subjects that we have not had opportunity to deal with tonight. This question and answer session on Monday starts at 8:30 p.m. and I hope it will give us that opportunity. But tonight, being the eve of Ashura, is a night of worship, is a night of prayer. One of the most highly spoken of, most renowned worshippers in Islam, and I'm talking of Islam as a whole, is Imam Hassan alayhi salam. For him, Ibn Asakir says that when Imam Hassan alayhi salam was ready for prayers, one could see him shaking. Those ahadith that we see for Imam Ali alayhi salam are prevalent and profuse with Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and his color would change green, and when asked he would say that here is a sinner facing his Lord. In what circumstances do I face him? And he would be seen shaking in the course of prayer. If you mentioned to him about maut, you would see tears from his eyes. He would start crying. If you talked about qabr, you would find him crying. People would not talk about Hashr. They would not talk about Mizan. They would not talk about Sirat, because the moment those matters are mentioned, or those ayats are recited by him in the Quran, you would see him weeping. That was the state of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Indeed, it is set out in all sources. In all sources, including Ibn Asakir, that he made 25 Hajj in the course of his life. And each one of them, he went to Hajj by foot. He would set out from Medina right to Makkah by foot, and his precious horses would be going alongside him. He would not mount one of them. Asked, he would say, I am ashamed to my Lord. I am ashamed to my Lord that I should be visiting his house on the back of a horse. I have got to foot to his house. Ibn Abbas says, and this is reported by Ibn Asakir, Ibn Abbas says that Allah has been very merciful to me. He has been very kind to me. A number of my wishes have been fulfilled. But I always yearned, I always longed that I should be able to make one Hajj. Footing from Medina to Makkah, I have not been able to achieve that. And when I see Hassan alayhi salam, I am amazed that this grandson of the Prophet has made 25 Hajj by foot. He describes ibadah of Allah in three forms. He says one is physical, and he excelled it. His prayers, the number of rak'ah he would recite. It is said he would be in the mosque before dawn for the tahajjud, of course, and he would remain in prayer until the sun rose. On a daily basis, he would be on that prayer mat until the sun rose. And when asked, he turned round and said that he who starts prayer at the crack of dawn and remains in prayer until the sun rises has the sitr, has the curtain of Allah put against the fire of hell. In other words, the fire of hell not only doesn't reach him, that satr stops even the heat of the fire of hell reaching next to him. This is Imam Hassan alayhi salam. The second form of prayer is the one in the course of a human movement. All these trips to Hajj, his trips on jihad, the various jihad that he fought. Thirdly, the prayer by way of giving in the path of Allah. It is said that on at least 2 occasions he gave away half of all he had to the poor. Indeed, according to Ibn Asakir, the leading Sunnite source, it was not twice but thrice that he did so. And this habit of wanting to remain in prayer is seen in Karbala as well. When negotiations for settlement failed and Umar ibn Sa'd wanted to start the battle tonight, Imam Hussein alayhi salam sent a word, O Umar ibn Sa'd, I seek but one night from you. And what does he want this night for? To close books? To meet his friends? No. All he wants that night for is to sit on his prayer mat and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because when again in the world was Hussein to have the chance to worship Allah, and so did his followers. Indeed, Hamid ibn Muslim said that on that night there was so much worshipping, there was so much tasbih, and there was so much recitation of Quran from the tent of Hussein alayhi salam that one almost thought there was the humming of the bees coming out from the tents of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The next day, of course, was the day on which martyrdom was to flow, and each son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, each son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam gave way. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam is now left wahidan farida, he starts his istighatha and says, Hal min nasirin yansuruna, is there anyone who will come to our help now? Suddenly he sees women in the tent crying, and when he comes to the tent, they say, Asghar has thrown himself from the cradle. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, Oh Rabab, Asghar wants me to take him to the battlefield. Maybe somebody will give him a drop of water. Rabab turns around and says, Oh my master, these are heartless people. Will any one of these people give him even a drop of water? Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, Rabab, to try is my duty. Make your son ready and I will take him. You know too well those heartless people did not give him any water at all. Indeed, Umar ibn Sa'd turns round when the people's hearts began to change and says to Hurmala, Hurmala, iqta'aka